Nice to meet you. Give me that. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rex and Park Commission meeting, April 17th. We're going to call the meeting to order at 6:32. And then we're going to do roll call. So please let me know if you're present. Commissioner LaFleur.
Present.
Commissioner Marigo.
Here.
Commissioner Ono.
Here.
Commissioner Vink.
Here.
Commissioner Redmond. Here. And I'm here as well. Great. So item number 2 on our agenda, we're going to approve the agenda. We have one request. If we can please move, somebody could make a motion to move item C, which is our council subcommittee proposed scope of the Recreation and Park Commission up to above A. If anyone would be willing to do so.
I'll move to amend the agenda as stated.
Do we have a second? Great. Moved by Commissioner Vink and seconded by Commissioner Ono. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, great. Item passes with a 6-0 vote. All right, item number 3, brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and council liaisons. So we'll turn that over to you guys.
Great, good evening, commissioners. Long time no see, after a couple months hiatus here. Nice to see you tonight. We'll try to run through these as quickly as possible. However, there are several updates. So first is the community needs assessment. So we briefed on this at our last meeting. Recall that it is an 18-month project, but tonight would like to share that our external survey component is now complete. They've tallied up the number of surveys. We had over 800 responses to the survey, which according to the consultant is pretty robust given their experience. Responses, they were able to actually map out those responses based on zip code, and it looks like they're fairly distributed throughout the city, so that's good news. However, part of this assessment is determining where we have gaps, and in fact, there were some gaps noted in the survey responses, specifically around teen input. So that's actually really good information for us because now, we can go seek out teen input specifically to help round out our responses and make it more robust. So our intent there is to be addressing that through our Teen Leadership Council and then some boots on the ground stuff, maybe at middle schools and high school in the near future. They've also wrapped our internal survey and our internal interviews for the staff assessment. And good news is that the majority of our staff have positive affect for the city and really feel a sense of pride working at the city. So I think that's the key takeaway there. Of course, there are things, additional things we'll be working through, and we'll have prepared a summary document for the commission and for the community in the coming months. But that was a key positive highlight there. And then lastly, we've begun the inventory component of the assessment. And recall that the inventory assessment involves a couple of different pieces. One is a mapping component, which will help us understand exactly how much square footage we or our contractors are responsible for maintaining, which really helps us understand the resources we need to properly care for our assets in the city. And then in addition to that, there's a condition assessment of our assets. So with that, the consultants will be putting boots on the ground and visiting our 20 parks that we've identified. It covers all of our community parks and many of our neighborhood parks. And they will be going through and rating the condition of all of our large assets in those parks. So we have an understanding of what our deferred maintenance looks like at this time. So that's where we're at with the needs assessment. And my intent is to continue to update where we're at with the needs assessment at every commission meeting. For capital projects, we have quite a bit of updates here. With capital projects, there tends to be kind of fits and starts with those where there'll be a period of inactivity because things are happening behind the scenes, and then suddenly you'll have sort of robust activity. So we have a lot going on with respect to those. With our aquatics capital project, that is a broad sort of umbrella that covers many, many pieces of our maintenance of the various pools. One very big project as a part of that was the community pool replastering effort, and that actually has recently been completed. In addition to that, we're in the process right now of addressing an additional maintenance item at Manor Pool, which includes a new heater there. So, and if there's any additional questions relating to aquatics, Janet is well versed in that and handling that capital project and can answer. The splash pad, we've just submitted final comments for the splash pad on the 100% plans. So we're very, very close to going to bid. Assuming there are no other delays and that those comments are addressed, we look to be breaking ground in the fall of this year. And then we would look to open the amenity in the summer of 2025. So, just keep in mind we'd be looking at a groundbreaking event in the fall of this year. And just a quick note, the artist for this project, Susan Shelton, she will actually be in Arbuckle next weekend to meet with the Coronas to start the tile painting effort that's a part of this project. So recall that as part of the project, there will be a community art component, and that involves Natalie Corona's family and the Arbuckle community and the Davis community. So we're going to kick that piece of the project off with her family, and they will be painting various tiles that will be placed on benches within the project, and then we will do various other iterations of that, moving from Arbuckle back down to Davis. The Universal Playground surfacing project, while that's not related directly to the splash pad, it is the playground most adjacent to the splash pad, and we are pursuing a replacement of that surfacing. If you go out there today, you'll notice there's quite a big hole underneath one of the swings, which I believe the swing has been taken down, but that hole needs to be addressed. So we went out to bid on that project. We did receive a bid back on that project, one bid only, which is about $80,000 over the engineer's estimate at this point. So we're looking to figure out how we might address that, that shortfall in funding. So more to come there. As you know, we have two capital projects happening right now at Community Park. One being the bathroom project and the other being the skate park, both made possible by a generous allocation of American Rescue Plan dollars. The first project being the bathroom, that design has been awarded to Indigo Architects. They are local. We've worked with them many, many times before. They are now in the process of doing site visits to the bathroom, looking at things like grading and utilities and so on. So they will be responsible for doing the design piece. We are looking at ultimately installing some sort of bathroom, whether it be a new build or whether it be a modular structure that gets delivered in late summer or fall of 2025. So that horizon's still quite a bit of ways out. The skate park, which is of course just right next to the bathroom, that is underway as well. We are pursuing a design build effort on that project, which we did purposely to ensure that whoever ultimately builds and designs this project has hands-on experience with skating, with the skating community, with skate parks in general. And that was feedback that we received directly from the skating community here in town. So that is how we're pursuing that. That pre-qual document was actually already completed and will be released on Friday. That is very good news. And because it's a design build together, that timeline is going to be shorter than how we would traditionally, than the traditional timeline for a project. But at any rate, we do believe that both the skate park and the bathroom will be under construction at the same time. The senior center patio project is ready to go. For those of you who've been on the commission or local for a while, you may know that the Senior Center patio project's been in the queue since 2016. So it's been quite some time. So we're really happy about this. This project is going to bid award at this coming council meeting with construction, assuming no issues, construction to follow immediately into the summer. Very excited about that. Arroyo Park shade structure, we talked about that briefly at the last commission meeting. There is no update there other than the shade structure itself is en route and should be in our possession in the end of April. And at that point, construction can begin. So at this point, it's just a waiting game.
Is that the one inside the pool or
Outside.
outside the pool?
Outside, so it's the pavilion.
That was more of a permanent one, right?
Correct, yes, it has barbecues, picnic tables. The sports courts phase 2 is now out to bid. Very excited about that as well. It closes tomorrow actually, and then we anticipate construction beginning this summer. So if you recall, that includes La Playa, Oak Grove, Pioneer, and Walnut. And then lastly, we are pursuing an electrical study at the moment with one of our on-call contractors. So this isn't quite a CIP yet, so this is kind of like a pre-CIP. And the purpose of this electrical study is to really determine what it would take to replace or renovate our field lighting in town. Our field lighting has some problems because it is very old. So obtaining the things to fix the lights when they go down is becoming more and more problematic. So we have a quote for what it would take to replace the lights, but we don't know what it would take to deal with or what we would need to do to address the underlying infrastructure. So that is the purpose of the electrical study, is to inform us as to what the all-in cost would be for a complete renovation of our field lights. And this includes the lights at Civic, Community, and Playfields. So that is that on capital projects. For programs, I know Janet's going to give a presentation or just a brief update on that. But I wanted to bring a quick, I just wanted to address something really quick about programming regarding our inclusionary efforts. So as we shared last year, as we brought to council, that was our first year at real intentional plans and a push to get creative with how we served our under-resourced youth in town through recreation. And this year, I'm happy to share that we're doubling down on those efforts. So I'll just run through briefly what that looks like with a comprehensive report to follow. We are continuing to offer our select summer programs at Mutual Housing. We are expanding programming at the Migrant Center. So if you recall, we did a 3-day soccer program last year, but this year we're actually expanding programming there to be an entire week, and it's going to be an array of summer programs. So it's going to look a lot more like our summer sampler program, which is very, very popular. And then we're broadening our reach to the vulnerable population to not just include youth, but also adults who are underserved and under-resourced as well by partnering with Davis Community Meals and bringing some programming to their Cesar Chavez location. So we'll be talking about that. And finally, intentionally partnering, and I think this is the most exciting of them all, Davis Joint Unified to offer one free summer program to approximately 80 low-income students. So this was a great collaboration between the school district and the city, in which we basically worked through a number of process issues to have them basically give us, well, they didn't provide us with a list, but we were allowed to have access to basically a list of their low-income students. They provided information to those students and their families to see who would want to participate in our program, should it be free, and then we were able to work through that student list. So that was a wonderful collaboration, because before that time, accessing scholarships had some challenges for folks. So we basically removed that barrier altogether through this intentional collaboration with the school district. So very excited about that. And again, we intend to bring a full report to council on this programming effort in the fall. All right, take it away, Janet.
I'm going to sneak in
My update is about the Golden Heart Award, so thank you to Vice Chair LaFleur for serving on the selection committee this year. The award is in memory of Andrew Marcus and is a way to recognize our outstanding youth in the community. And so the committee selected 2 youth for a community service award and 2 youth for the personal challenge award, and the ceremony will be held on May 7th here at the City Council meeting. And then tagging on to DM's inclusion programs, the ESL program that we offered last year just started up again last night. And so it's a 10-week program where we offer for adults the English language classes, and then also provide meals and an enrichment program if there's any children, so the child care is taken care of for those 2 hours while the parents or the caregivers are in the class. We have 20 people who showed up and 5 people who are on the waiting list. So right now we're talking with the library to see if there's a way that we can expand and include the other 5 who are interested. And there were 7 children in the youth program. And that's all I have.
Okay, I'm here to update you on registration for summer programs. On March 6th, summer registration opened for outdoor recreation, which includes Camp Huda, horse riding camp, and trekkers. And to no surprise, Camp Huda sold out in minutes. Horse camp and trekkers also sold out. And then registration for all other camps, programs, and swim lessons for the first half of the summer began on March 20th. And out of 158 camp sessions, 95 of them are currently full. And so that leaves 63 that are still open. Out of 150 aquatic sessions, 89 are full and 61 are available. And the second half of swim lessons will open on July 10th. We have had discussions in the past about expanding our programs. And as we have also talked about, there are constraints as far as staffing and locations. But this year we were able to add 3 camps to the last week of summer. And then as Deanne mentioned, we're also expanding the programming out at the Migrant Center.
I have a few updates for you in parks. January 8th, we released an RFP for landscape maintenance services in the city, both for the Southwest and the Northeast contracts. That closed on February 2nd. We had 5 agencies who submitted. The division assembled a scoring committee consisting of 6 people. Commissioner Ono was one of those panelists who worked with us to score the RFPs, as well as interview 3 prospective firms who we felt gave us the best options. At the conclusion of that process, we decided, based on price and what we were getting in terms of services, that Brightview Landscapes would continue to be our service provider for the next 2 years. The Northwest contract and the Southeast contract both came in at about a little over 900,000, which is on par for kind of what we're paying right now, which is a little bit under that. So, and in year 2, they also were the only firm who did not increase the price, so that also factored in. We are wrapping up the Healthy Play initiative. You may remember in 2022, we came to you with several proposed playground renovations. 5 of those came to fruition, La Playa being the last of those. It just concluded last week, so we'll be opening that next week. They just contacted me today to let me know that the fencing will be coming down, so we are excited to have 5 new playgrounds throughout the city. The North Star Pond renovation, the 3rd phase of that, just completed. If you haven't been out to North Star lately, I encourage you to go. The pond looks phenomenal. This has been a long process, I'm sure some of you know, but after 3 years, we finally have gotten control of the pond, and now we're in the phase where we're doing continued maintenance. Solitude Lake Management has done an excellent job working with us, keeping us apprised of everything that's gone on throughout the 3 phases, working with us through our nesting season, which has prevented us from doing certain aspects of the job, and then even weather delays. They've just been phenomenal to work with. So again, if you haven't been out to North Star, please go check that pond out because it looks great out there. Slide Hill, some of you may be aware that currently the concrete slide at Slide Hill is disengaged because it was deemed to be unsafe. We've been working, Parks and Public Works have been working together to come up with a fix for the stairs that lead up to that concrete slide. We've purchased those stairs, we have those in hand, and right now we're working with Public Works for the installation portion of that. And so we're hoping to come up with, or to finalize a plan to get those in place here soon. So hopefully the next time we meet with you, we'll be able to give you an update that that's been completed. And my final update for you is that we are standardizing signage in parks. If you go to any park in the city, you may find that there are different versions of our park hours, of some of our municipal codes and things like that. And so the management team has decided that we want to standardize that for the entire city as well as our sports court signage. And so we're finalizing that, having those fabricated, and you will see those start going up within the next month.
Is that all?
That's amazing, you guys. That's a lot of work, and I know I appreciate all of the updates that you guys are providing through that, because I know that some of these things are long-standing, especially like the senior center one. I think that probably fell off most of our radars from 2016 or whatever it was. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I cut through Slide Hill Park just the other day after dropping my car off for some work, and I was impressed that you put those informational signs up with QR codes. I think that's just a great communication piece to the public. So instead of just that closed off tape, you actually had this positive feature out there. So well done.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. Before that actually jogged my memory, I have another update on the signage policy that we're doing. So as part of that information sharing that we've been trying to do this year, in the past, you guys know we've sort of been blasted for the weed situation in the city of Davis. And so this year we wanted to get ahead of that. And so what we did is we put out some signage in the parks and green belts that basically have a QR code that will direct you to the city website that will give you information, kind of frequently asked questions on our weed abatement policies, our IPM policies. So just to get a little bit of information out there about things in the past that we have sort of handled as they've come in. This year we are trying to get ahead of that. Some of the signage that you'll see out there is generalized, like this sign that I'm presenting to you right now. Some of it is actually site specific. So South Pewter Creek, for example, it's a very unique area that we service because the north side of that walk path is serviced by parks, but the south side of that is serviced by open space. And those are two different standards of care that are done out there. And so we've tried to be very transparent and get the information out to the residents of Davis that there's a reason why the south side looks sort of unkempt and the north side looks more maintained. So, yeah, and there's a heavy emphasis on foxtails. So, what we're doing to take care of that, and also some of the challenges that we face. Pewter Creek Trail is a great example of an area that no matter how much maintenance we provide out there, when you have an open space area where that seabed is basically being blown across the pathway, right? It's going to be something that we're constantly having to maintain, but this way we at least get the information out there so that members of the public understand kind of the plight that we're facing when we are trying to handle weed abatement throughout the entire city.
That's great to see. So you said that those are going to be up in all the parks, or most of them, that sign?
Right now, what we're trying to do is be strategic in where we put them. So areas that we've typically seen, we call them hotbeds, where we know that we've gotten complaints in the past, several complaints in the past. We're trying to put them out there. Eventually, we would love to expand it throughout the entire city, just so that it's sort of uniform throughout. But right now, we're just kind of piloting this to see if it helps us with some of that communication that in the past we've had a little bit of difficulty with.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Just to follow up on that, is that only for information or can people report issues into that?
People can still report. You can always use the Go Request system to report, and we welcome that. Bob and I actually met out at the cannery earlier this week with a young lady who has some ideas for the landscaping out there because we've lost some plantings out there. And we discussed that the Go Request system is a way for us to put eyes on areas that we can't typically get to in the same timely fashion that some of our residents do. And so we absolutely encourage and love that program because it helps us sort of see where we need to focus some of our efforts But yes, you can still make requests, and that might be something we need to look at as far as encouraging people, if you do have a question or a concern, to direct them to that part of the website.
Right now, the QR code will take you to more information, either about the weeds, or we have it for our current projects, and we'll take you to the website that has information of the current projects that are listed, or the information specific to whatever the signage is for.
Great. Other commissioners have questions?
First of all, I'd like to say thanks to Dave for coming out to Canada. I think it was very helpful. Homeowners out there are always appreciative when they see the Brightview staff and city staff out there and meeting with them and explaining the conditions of the park and what things can be done and what things can't. I think the signs with the weed information would be very helpful. I know there's a lot of open space areas and park areas where people get concerned about the foxtails and other weeds, and they're walking their pets, and so I think that'll help. I did have a question about La Playa. Is that going to be, when it reopens, is that an event where commissioners and council members can participate, or is that going to be a quiet opening?
At this time, what we've discussed is just doing a quiet opening.
Any other questions? Yes?
Just one more on the standardized sizing. Do you anticipate identifying more of your parks out there with their actual names?
That's next.
Okay. Park ranger, I mean, we live at these.
Yes.
Great.
Commissioner Rigo.
Highlight a couple notes that I have. For the bathrooms and community parks, did you say 2025?
Yes.
Mid-2025, because we're looking at that, so.
Yes, yes.
So before summertime, when things really get into.
Oh, in 2025? Excuse me. No, the bathrooms at community would probably be fall 2025.
Okay, so they miss all the summer activities for.
Probably, yeah.
So you said you're working with the school district on scholarships for summer programs. I also know the Davis Encampment also provides a bunch of scholarships. Does the city work with Davis Encampment through the Oddfellows? Or?
Yes, we do work with Oddfellows. I believe it's one spot in our outdoor ed program is through the Oddfellows.
Because when I was part of it, they were, I mean, we gave a whole bunch of summer passes.
Right, I think in this case, so the funding for this came from residual dollars, ARP funds that were allocated for this purpose. So there was interest in serving as many youth as we could with those dollars. And in fact, we actually ran out of funding before we could serve all the people who were interested. So what that tells me is that even with the Oddfellows and even with the city applying maximum effort here, that there is still a significant need for recreation programs in the summer for our underserved youth.
I remember when we did our visit to the Royal Pool last year, if I was correct, they're going to be at full capacity this year. So no restrictions at all. And then North Star Pond, so I walk by the pond every day, take my dog on a walk. It does look great. I love how all the gross brown stuff that was growing there. Question to you is, the green stuff that's now there, because you can actually see the pond, which is awesome. It looks like the same stuff that's ultimately was brown. Is that gonna grow up, or what is the maintenance for that to keep it so it doesn't go back to what it was?
So we built in a multi-year maintenance portion of the contract with Solitude, so they will continue to provide ongoing maintenance for the next 3 years for us to make sure that we don't see ourselves in this position again 5 years after the start of the project.
And I loved having the backhoe in the pond, sitting there on the side. That was great. Question, so I've been to several park openings that we've had over the couple of years, and we've gone out there and just did, you said a quiet opening. I don't know why we're not announcing it and being there during the evening time with people on their walks or whatever. I love the park openings because I think it's a big deal. If we put all this money and everything into it, why don't we spend a day to go out there and promote. No, my thought, I would go. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I just had one follow-up question. I know it's not on the laundry list here, but last meeting, I think you gave an update about the community park solar panels. And I just was curious, is that area still closed, or what would be happening there?
Yes, it is still closed, still fenced off, but I believe the bid went to council like a couple of weeks ago. So that is moving forward for being rehabilitated,
Okay, good.
and it was very expensive,
I'm sure.
as everything.
Do you have
Yeah,
follow-up?
we approved the
Yeah.
contract at our last council meeting.
Okay,
It's
great.
on the calendar for that project.
Okay, great. I know it's like a heavily used area, especially in the summertime, and so it's nice to be able to access it, so. Good, excellent. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and open public comment. The public comment section is for the commission to receive comments, except for brief questions for clarification. During public comment, a member of the public may address the commission on matters not listed on this agenda or are listed on the consent calendar. If possible, citizens should reserve their comments for regular matters listed on the agenda at the time the item is considered by the commission. Speakers will be asked to line up at the podium and state their name for record, and comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. I know we have some folks in the audience, but I think you all have items. Is that accurate? Okay, so we will close public comment.
Sure. Oh, just going back to announcements, did any of the commissioners have announcements?
Oh.
Or the council liaison?
Great. Sorry, Mayor Chapman, do you have any announcements?
No, I can't follow up that lengthy report from our great staff team over there.
Okay, I
Nothing to
figured,
add to that, thank you.
I figured your update is coming up
It's
shortly.
okay.
Any commissioner updates as well? Okay,
I just have.
I jumped, oh, you do, okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to talk about, so I put this in front of, this card in front of everybody's seat, that it's the Natalie Corona splash pad, and it directs you, if you do the QR code, it directs you to if you want to buy a brick. To have it already on the entrance going in, we've been meeting, we still meet once a month on it, and I think we said the grand opening we're looking for sometime in September. I think that's what we came, not grand opening, sorry, groundbreaking in September, and then the building will start after that. We're still going out to bid with it. People are still excited about it. We're still trying to raise money. The last week we had, or this 2 days ago, we had where we're going to put signs, different signs around the splash pad about Natalie, what the gardens are, what's there. They look absolutely wonderful there. We're also working with Sutter to come up with how do you talk about why we put the splash pad there, why it's there, to talk to your kids or to help people deal with what the event happened and why it's there. So, pretty exciting, but feel free to buy a brick, $222.
All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to item 5, the consent calendar. So here we have the Recs and Parks Commission minutes from January 17, 2024. Hopefully everybody was able to review that. And if we don't have any recommendations for edits or anything, can I request a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion, was that Commissioner LaFleur, was that you? Okay, and then Commissioner Morego, second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? No? Okay, motion passes 6-0. All right, so we are moving to item 6, and we're going to address C first. Consider council subcommittee proposed scope of the Recreation and Parks Commission. And this is Mayor Chapman, you are up. Do you want to present it, or
No,
Tamika,
it's me.
whoever? Okay, all right, go ahead.
I'll start. So we've had conversations with the subcommittee from council over the last year. They've been reviewing the structure, the roles, and responsibilities for all of the different advisory commissions. Had some time speaking with the past chair of Bink, as well as coming in and talking to us about some of the directions that they might be going in. And so through all of their efforts, they have made some recommendations for some changes, but not so much to the Rec and Park Commission, except for our scope and function. So bear with me for a moment and let me pull up the slide. And so what is being proposed for our commission is the purpose of us meeting is to advise on matters relating to public recreation and parks. And our functions are to review and make recommendations related to city recreation activities and programs, to review and make recommendations related to park planning and operational policies, and to participate in related public outreach events, and to really serve as the lead commission on implementation efforts for the Parks and Facilities Master Plan. So tonight for the commission is the subcommittee is asking all of you to provide some feedback. Is this proposed scope clear? Does it cover the subject areas that you expect the Rec and Park Commission to cover? And if not, what do you think is missing? And is it manageable for you all to come together and handle all of these functions? And if you want, I can tell you that how it varies from what our current functions are is previously we were to advise council on matters pertaining to public recreation and park planning, which is still in there, just separated out into two separate. So now it's recreation has its own function and park planning has its own function. To review annual budgets for park and recreation programs. This was actually not a part of our proposed scope because the budget isn't something that has to be approved here at this commission because it goes through the finance commission for approval and then to council. So instead of it coming here and then having to go to another commission and then having to go to council, they're trying to streamline it so it just has to go through the main finance, which oversees all of the budgets that come through for all the different departments. And then to provide recommendations on public art projects as it relates to park design or theme of a park. And Arts and Civic Arts has its own commission, which I think may have a new name or is in the process of rebranding. So the art pieces go through the Arts Commission, and then anything that comes into a park comes in through us under the recommendations related to park planning. So you don't lose any element of that, it's just specific to your scope now. It doesn't lead with art, you lead with parks or recreation. So I'm open to any feedback that you would like to give, and we have our mayor here who is on the subcommittee, so he can give any more information if you have it or need it.
Sure, yeah, I'll just jump in real quick. Thank you, Tamika, for that follow-up. And one of the pieces that when we were tasked with looking at commissions, Vice Mayor Beitla and I were appointed to that subcommittee, and we spent about a year having conversations with commissions, with chairs, with vice chairs, with our city staff, and everyone who's a liaison into the commissions. And what we were focused on were a couple of different pieces, was really trying to refine and have a little bit more of an efficient approach to the tasks that were under the scope and under the authorizing resolutions of the commissions. This commission, as you heard from Tamika, there wasn't a lot that was changed with it, just some of the wording that made it just kind of cross over into another commission scope that we refined a little bit so that, you know, like Tamika said with the park planning piece, that art piece would still come here, but the phrase art goes to the Civic Art Commission. The other piece that we're focused on is in your staff packet, in your packet for today, is kind of what we want to see happen around our general plan update. So we really have focused these commissions around the required elements of a general plan update. And some of the proposed mergers that have gone through that we've talked about are focused in on those required elements by the state. So when you look in your staff packet, there's a series of, there's a few bullet points, I'm just pulling mine up here, on page 4, that are very specific to the general plan update and what we're hoping the commissions do in terms of their their expertise in the commission, what that is for you, Parks and Rec. So if you look at it, develop an outreach strategy, including a methodology to underserved and vulnerable groups. We know that you guys have done a lot of that work recently with Deanne and her team. So have your hands already there and continue to do that. We want to make sure as we embark on a general plan update that we are hearing the voices of everyone in this community. And we hear that a lot from this commission of how we reach underserved communities of all ages. That's the first bullet point. Conduct a series of community meetings to obtain input. To your point, Commissioner Marigo, going to the parks, and I think this commission does a lot of that already. It goes to parks, we had one at Pioneer Park where students were there were flyers, there were things happening, and going to where folks are and hearing what they have to say, and specific to their neighborhood, right? What they want to see happen with these city assets that are in where they live, where they play, where they gather. And then summarizing input in a format that can be easily inserted in the general plan update. So you come together, obviously direction from the city council. We had our RFP for the consultant that would help the commission through this process. So we wouldn't just be throwing all this information onto your plate in a commission meeting and then saying, go do all this important work without any help and support from a consultant who does this line of work. We feel like we have some good folks that can really help lead through that process and really focus the engagement in the community with our commissioners. And then provide information to the city council for approval and inclusion in the general plan update. So that would be, how this commission, right, and the last general plan was done about 25 years ago. And it really does provide an opportunity to have input on how this specific to parks, what we want to see, how we want to see parks evolve, what they look like, how we interact with them, more parks, all that work, a 20-year plan basically, specific to parks and recreation. So that would come to this, you have that, you could create a report, and then ideally that would just get plugged into that element of the general plan update. So there's a huge amount of work and heavy lift that's going to be coming that we're going to be asking commissions to do to really help us get this general plan going along. Last year, I almost blanked. How long was it? The last time, Kelly? Our last general plan update took how long? 8 years? About 8 years long. We had, 115 was it, people on the committee or whatever it was? Anyway, there's a long process that really, by the time that all got done, we were looking at a plan that was started 8 years previous. So what we have, Vice Mayor Vitla and I have focused on, really want to do is to get this, is engage, have the commissions be at the forefront of this process so that it's not just our city staff and our consultant doing this work, and putting kind of this workload onto the commissions to empower them to really engage the community and come back with this product. So outside of what you're seeing up here, related to the functions that we have, all commissions, if you go through, they basically, what we tried to do is get authorizing resolutions down to 3 or 4 manageable functions. And some of that was just condensing functions that were there that were just overlapping with other functions the commission was doing. And wordsmithing a little bit to get it to where it was very clear and concise. So what's before you this evening, as Tamika said, is, there's not a ton of change here for yours, but are we missing something? What are your thoughts on it? And just some feedback as we continue that. We're making the rounds to all our commissions this month to have those conversations before it comes back to the council for approval. So we have Kelly Stakowitz here, our assistant city manager, who has been kind of side by side with Vice Mayor Vitla and I through this process. So any other questions that you may have, Kelly will be able to answer it. And she has been, her and Zoe, our city clerk, have been at all of our commission meetings this month to really be able to have this dialogue and answer questions that you may have. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our staff team and then go from there. Thanks.
Yeah, so the question is, does this look like it looks right for the commission? Do you feel like the function meets what it is that you're all tasked to do, that it's achievable, or do you have any comments or feedback that I can take back to the subcommittee? Well, you have half of the subcommittee here, and you have the assistant city manager here, so.
And the other half is in that room right there doing the same thing.
At the other commission.
Great. Any commissioner feedback, comments, questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Ling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only wish that Commissioner Siegel were here tonight because he had raised a pretty important point about community outreach. And I'm glad to see that addressed here. I think I'm understanding this, that the only real changes in our function are really, I'd say, more changes in wording, but the big piece, the big-ish piece would be this community outreach component. And is that expected or anticipated of all commissions, ours included? I know there's interest in that, and I won't speak for other members of the commission who are here tonight, but I'll chime in a little bit for Commissioner Siegel because he mentioned it in the past. I'm glad to see it, and I think it would be important for us to engage in that discussion and figure out how we could assist with community outreach.
Yeah, I mean, if I can jump, just, so the memo that is in the staff report is a memo that went to, it's in the, every single commission is getting that same memo with those 4 or 5 bullet points related to outreach. One of the things that we know is that we have a very small but mighty staff team at the city, and having our staff be the only ones that are out there really trying to promote and do the community engagement was going to be a heavy lift. And so we do want all of our commissions to have the same information that you have before you tonight. They all will have that information. And then the expectation of, you know, what does that outreach look like? It's different commission to commission, and it's going to definitely look different for yours, who is such an outward-facing public commission with the work that you do and the engagement in all walks of life in our community in all ages. So I think it'll vary depending on what the commission is, but that would be the expectation, but also with support from a really experienced consultant team who can help with that, and also a marketing team and folks that come on that can help get the word out and do that side by side with you.
Okay, other questions? Yes, Commissioner Allen.
Echoing Commissioner Vince, and I know Commissioner Siegel was interested in this, perhaps at a future commission meeting, we can have a discussion with city staff to look at what does that community engagement look like? What roles do you see? Because I'm not sure it's entirely clear, but it might be a great conversation to have.
Yeah, I know through our process, as I can speak as the liaison for the commission, is one of the questions I was asked, or our other liaisons, is, you know, for this work of public outreach, I spoke on behalf of the commission from my experience of saying, this forum is not how we do our outreach. As you can see, our public isn't really coming here to discuss what's important to them out in the parks. And so when we have events that we are trying to solicit feedback for the skate park, we go out to the skate park and we try to capture the people who are there. When we're doing things, you know, out in certain locations, we try to go out to those sites and to engage the community, and how this meeting necessarily is a public forum, but it's not where the public is coming. And so if the task for our commission is to reach out to our community, is this the actual venue to be doing that? Or do we need to change how we do things and change, you know, our approach and go out and be more strategic out into the community? And so that was the feedback that I gave of just saying, I can tell you how many public people come to our meetings because I have that on our minutes of, like, we have numerous meetings with 0 participants. But if we're trying to engage the community for sports courts or, you know, skate park or park amenities, like, we need to go out into the community to ask them. We need to say, what do you want here in this location? So we can capture the people who are walking by and using the space versus you know, this is a good forum for some things, but if we're outreach, this might not be the way that we're trying to get. So that was my feedback.
Right, I think, well, notice that we don't have a great number of public attendees at these commission meetings, so I think the community engagement, being out there with city staff, I know La Playa is a quiet opening, but those often provide a great opportunity for staff and commissioners to discuss what people like to see in their parks, what they enjoy, what they're missing. So I think that's a conversation perhaps we can have as to future projects and development. What role should commissioners play in that community engagement? Because I don't know if it's real clear at this point.
Well, I would say too that it's incumbent in some way on staff to advise the commission as to where the gaps are. So for example, while the LaPlaya examples is good, we would all be there already. And what is very useful is to use the commission as force multipliers for us, right? To be boots on the ground in areas where we're not already going to be, and to round out our community impact. And so I think it would be incumbent upon us. So for example, looking at the teen thing that I said earlier about the gap in that survey return, you know, if we already know that that survey did not reach our teen population, and knowing that there's only one or two of us that could possibly put boots on the ground to address that, it would be fantastic to engage the commission on some effort in getting in front of our teens in the town to figure out what they'd like to see addressed in our next needs assessment. So that would be an example of how we could use this.
Yeah, I think that component is actually really critical, because oftentimes when we do get public forum, it's because there's something that people are upset about, right? And being able to do the community outreach and reach different populations, of whether it be different co-sponsored groups or whatever it may be, it's nice to be able to have all the groups represented and be able to get in front of things, have transparency, be able to communicate, and allow them an opportunity for us to be able to liaison for them as well, in addition to city staff. So, I mean, I definitely think that it's a critical piece, and I'm really happy to see that in there. I just think that it'd be good to help put a little bit of defining, like what that looks like, a little bit more structure, because I think sometimes, you know, each of us up here may have different interests in terms of these different groups, or we have different connections with different things, and so it's important that not just our interests are represented here, but all of the interests, right? So there may be groups that are not represented, and it's important that they have a voice at the table also. So that would be my only kind of feedback. But does anybody else? Yep, go ahead.
Just, I don't want to get off topic, but to talk about the outreach when you were going through your report, it never even occurred to me that I could get together with one of you to go to the junior highs, because I have a lot of friends that were one of the principals at the junior high. It's a friend of mine to be able to go in there and go when they have one of their rallies or whatever, to go in and talk with them and hand it out and tell people to go to it, and maybe get 40, 60, whatever it is. I don't have an issue, but I never even picked up on that, hey, this is something I should reach out to you on and say, hey, when do you want to do this?
Any other commissioners with feedback? Yeah, Commissioner
Yeah, but
Evans.
do you think it'd be reasonable to put that on our next agenda so that we could define that more clearly, so that we can help sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, we can. I also think that this is an opportunity to give a recommendation back to City Council. So I think within our recommendations, we can do it now to be able to discuss this further, and then have an opportunity to give feedback to the subcommittee as well. So if that's something that we want to do, then I would recommend that we provide that in our feedback for them now.
Is Commissioner Redmond suggesting actually diving into doing the work? That's what I heard her say, maybe I misunderstood, which I think is great. I don't think we're quite ready to do that tonight, but we want to plan to do that, I think. But it sounds like tonight we're just putting forth any ideas, suggestions, thoughts about the proposal that came from the council subcommittee.
Sure, yeah.
Well, I'm basically asking that to really discuss it at length, it would have to be agendized so that we could discuss it in the future on how that looks, what that looks like.
I'll defer to you whether we need to agendize that or if that's something that can be.
I think the direction for tonight is just to give feedback on the proposed scope, to see if this is something that you have, if you feel like the function meets the needs of the commission. And then if you're wanting to, what I'm gathering from everyone's comments is that you're looking for more definition of what it means for public outreach and community engagement. And I don't know if that's something that,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm hearing two different things, like bifurcating them is important. I think one, I mean, like, so the community outreach focused on the general plan update will be, it's not, like I said, it's not just coming to you and we're saying, okay, go do this work. We will have a consultant team who's gonna work closely with the commission in organizing, promoting, and running the community outreach at your discretion, the work that you're gonna do. Here's what we wanna do, here's how we see that move forward, and they're gonna walk you and work with you through that process. They're not gonna come and say, here's what you need to do, now go do it. That's not what we're trying to do at all. But I also think that there's a community outreach component that's overlying this whole issue, just around how does this commission, like Commissioner Marigo said, better engage with the community around some of these issues. So I think that conversation is more specific to the overall running and outreach of the commission in general. And then there's the general plan update outreach, which is a way more intense and involved outreach engagement process than I think what we're talking about, the school piece. Great ideas. I think those are pieces that you all can have that conversation around that and come up with a plan or idea of like, yeah, we want to hit each junior high over the course of 6 months. We're going to have a handout for the health class with a QR code. They can take a survey, right, about parks. So whatever that is, and that's a different kind of outreach than what we're envisioning for the general plan update. So I think for this evening, it's more of, and I hear loud and clear, and I saw Kelly taking notes around, I think what we would need to clarify at council coming back is, okay, so let's give some guardrails around what the outreach looks like and how that's going to go. So at least coming into this, you have a better understanding of what that looks like. So I hear that loud and clear and think that we can provide that. But I do think, Commissioner Redmond, your point and what Commissioner Siegel had brought up previously was just this overlying issue around outreach in the community. We heard that when we talked to Tamiko around how do we not just check this box of we had a meeting and that was the opportunity for people in the public to come and give their feedback. Nobody came, so we checked the box, we did it, and now we make a decision, right? It's this desire to have a more well-rounded and representative input from the community as a whole. And I think that's a conversation that you should have, but it's different than I think the general plan update that that's tied into what we're talking about here this evening. That clarifies some of it. Thanks.
does that help? Okay. So question for you commissioners. Right now, the second function has kind of two things together. Do you want to recommend or give feedback that the participate in public outreach events is its own standalone function, and then later on through the commission work, we can look at what projects or what things are happening and then define out like what those things are for, let's say, the year, or more clarity comes from the subcommittee to say, this is what we mean about public outreach and this is how many we would like the Rec and Park Commission to do. I mean, I think there is some flexibility in the sense of how many times we meet. If we're going to change that, that has to be a commission level decision. So if we said like X number of times are out in the field kinds of public engagement meetings, and then this many are in the chambers kind of commission meetings, I think that's something that, Kelly, right, you guys can vote on and make as your own decision. Doesn't have to go through the subcommittee. I think what I'm looking more from you is the direction of, do these functions feel like they fit in with the Rec and Park Commission, or do we need to split anything out to make it, does the public outreach feel like it needs to be separated out in its own function, or is it okay being in the park planning?
Any commissioner feedback? Go ahead, Commissioner LaFleur.
Yeah, just looking at that middle box, I mean, the way, not to get too deep in wordsmithing, but when I look at that, it says participate in related public outreach events. So to me, it's tying it specifically to that park planning and operational policies, whereas the discussion I've heard from commissioners and you all, it seems like public outreach warrants its own category. It just seems like it's so big.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think it does feel like it's tied to park planning and operation policies. I think it would be good to have a separate function just because it leaves it a little bit more open to be able to address it in each of the different categories as needed. But I also think
what would be helpful for me too is to be able to take those 4 bullet points on page 4 that you're referring to, and kind of put those in some sort of subcategory on this function sheet too, because some of these are pretty critical pieces, I think, to a component, and it's, while it's maybe not a function, it's like some subdirections, or, and you know, while we're working on a general plan, it may be helpful to have that listed, you know, as recommendations or some other category within this scope. I know it addresses every subcommittee, but I think that, you know, something as simple as like conduct a series of community meetings to obtain input, obviously that could go into participating in related public outreach events, but like something where it's develop an outreach strategy or summarize input in a format that can be easily inserted into specifically the general plan update. Like those are good kind of markers for us to also keep in mind within this function as well.
Absolutely, and I think, and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been a lot to remember over the past year, but I'm pretty sure. So what we were hoping to do was to not tie into the authorizing resolutions or the revised scopes, adding into these functions here the elements of what we're going to need for a general plan update. The reason why is because in order for us to then, when the general plan update is over, we would then need to go back and then redo the authorizing resolutions, bring it to commissions, bring it to council, and go through that whole process again. So if I remember correctly, and I hear again tonight, what we'll do is, I'm pretty sure the idea was that those would be kind of an addendum to the function and the scope, but not written into what you have up here, because then we would have to go back and redo them all over again.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so they'll be there. I think that for tonight, it was just like, here's what we're thinking. When you're looking at it and there's authorizing resolutions and somebody goes on the website, or they're looking at the Parks and Rec Commission authorizing charter, they would see the general plan information there, but kind of as a sub-note to what your overall functions are on a regular basis. And
Yeah.
tie that way.
Yeah, that's great. I think as long as it's like some sort of addendum, it's just nice to be able to see it together too
Absolutely.
for this purpose, but I totally understand and that makes more sense, so. Any other questions?
I'll just add, I am supportive of breaking out to participate in related public outreach events as a separate item as well. I wasn't sure if you're looking for a commission recommendation or just information, general information.
Yeah, I think just more general information, feedback that Tamiko and the staff team here will then put together in their report that comes back to us around exactly what you talked about here. Like, hey, you know, they wanted another bullet point for specific to outreach or whatever that overall conversation is, and they'll capture that and then bring it back to us. And then we, as a subcommittee, would then take all that information from commissions and then make the recommendation back to council as to breaking that piece out or not, whatever that is. But obviously, I think, you know, kind of hearing what you all are saying, and I do understand the importance of, this is such a forward-facing, outward-facing commission. It's so different, right? And the engagement with our community is at a different type of importance. I think not that in other commissions it's not, but going to where people are with these policy areas is important. So I'm not quite sure. I think that's what we're looking for this evening. Not like, you know, did we miss anything, right? Is there something that you sit here and talk about on a regular basis that you think, you know, we missed? So I think it's more of that kind of conversation.
So Tamiko, since it's just a recommendation, we just provided you with our recommendation, we don't need to vote or anything, is that right?
That's correct. I have notes here, and
Great,
Kelly was taking notes as well, so we
Okay.
will.
excellent. Does anybody have any comments? Okay, so we'll go ahead and ask for public comment. Anyone? No? Still the same people here, patiently waiting for your items? Okay, so we'll close public comment, and then, thank you, Mayor Chapman and Tamiko for that update. That's great. It's good work, and we're happy to be able to give you small recommendations.
Yeah, so I'll just say I want to just, you know, thank you for your continued work and for your input on this, and for I want to thank you well in advance for the work that we're going to be doing together on the general plan update. It really is a lot of work, but really exciting work. And when you think about, like, that is the document that guides this city for the next 20 years. and you have the ability to kind of be, 6 or 7 of you at the forefront of that related to what you specifically know and believe and are passionate about. So thank you for your time in doing that.
So is your hope that it's not gonna take 8 years to finish this round of general plans?
I feel like there's some kind of knocking on wood that would need to happen. We would love to see this process be a 2-year process.
Okay.
When you step back and look at the level of engagement that we want to see happen, having those run concurrently, and then what we need to do just in general around EIRs and secret documents, is already just built in timelines around that we'll be up against. But we would love to have this not take, it will not take 8 years, I can tell you that. But
You might have some commissioner turnover
Yeah,
by
right.
the 8 years are up,
and council
so.
turnover, all kinds of, but yeah, we're hoping it's a 2-year process.
Okay,
Just a quick clarification, and gosh, I probably should know this, but I don't, but what's the recreation and park component of the general plan? There's not a specific general plan element that addresses recreation and parks, or is there? Does it get kind of folded into a few different elements?
You pulled it up, Kelly? Yeah, that's how I was doing the same.
And maybe even, not to put Commissioner LaFleur on the spot, but, well, I guess your involvement's been more at the state level, but I was thinking, gosh, I haven't looked at the city general plan to see what it says either specifically, or maybe it's more high level about recreation and parks.
So there's 2 different pieces to the general plan. There's the required elements that we have to have, that the state requires us to have. And for those, the ones that overlap with this commission would be open space and land use. A little bit maybe with environmental justice, but mostly those 2. But we've also had in the past general plans additional elements that we've chosen to put in. And so it remains to be seen if we are going to be doing those, and if one of those would be more closely aligned to the work of this commission.
Okay. The current general plan, is there a separate section for recreation and parks?
That was a while, I have to go look
How
and see.
many elements are there in the current one?
20 something?
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
way over
Well,
20.
now I don't feel badly for not knowing the answer.
Yeah.
I probably should have known that. Thank you.
I did have one question. So you mentioned secret documents, so how does the CEQA process underlie this? Is this like a functional equivalent of a programmatic EIR, or what does this look like from a CEQA standpoint?
So at the end of the day, the general plan is also a very large and important land use document. And because it's a land use document that says how we're going to actually use the properties in the city, we have to do a CEQA analysis in EIR in order to see what types of mitigations might be necessary and what types of issues might arise based on the overall general plan choices that we make. So it's just a very broad plan that requires a very broad CEQA document. I don't know if that answers your question. It's not a specific project that you're looking at, which is typically what we would do in EIR. A particular proposal would have an EIR, a particular subdivision. Well, this is sort of the umbrella EIR, if you will.
Right, yeah, so it's a programmatic level document, and then subsequent analyses would accompany specific projects as they may be.
Right, that drill down into deeper detail and very specific, details of that particular project.
Right, okay.
Which is very similar to what we did for our downtown plan, right? We approved the downtown plan. We had an EIR and CEQA document that went forward and took a couple of years to go through, but was the CEQA document for that entire planning area, which was all of our downtown. So that put the framework there for developers to have some sort of certainty around, marking off some of those variables, and then when those projects come forward, they do a deeper dive, like for example, the Hibbert property, we'll do a deeper dive into what some of those impacts are, but there was this overall planning document that was a blanket for the downtown. It's very similar to that.
Yeah, and so would you be anticipating some kind of a challenge down at the end just because it's a litigious world, or we're going to be pretty well bulletproof?
we have big feelings in this community. That's a good thing. So I won't say we're anticipating a litigious challenge or anything like that, but it is a process we'll have to work through carefully. And we're fortunate in that we have a very good city attorney who specializes in land use and these kinds of things. And so she'll be with us every step of the way.
Okay, it'll be interesting.
Yes, it will.
All right, I think we would like to go ahead and move on here. So we're going to go back up to item 6A, the Community Pool Service Provider Annual Report. This is just a recommendation item, and we're going to receive an update from Davis Aquadarts.
So in your packet, you had a staff report that just outlined kind of why we're bringing this topic back to the commission, which is because in 2023, we had the RFP for the agreement of the community pool. As you know, we were looking at what to do to keep this amenity open, and that we weren't able to offer the programming there. And so we put it out for a public request for proposal, and that award was awarded over to Davis Aquadarts, or DARTS. So we have Billy here tonight to talk about the annual reporting requirement that is part of the agreement. And so I'll turn it over to him.
Commissioner, mind if I give the sheets out and you can follow along?
Sure.
Thanks.
Be careful of the cord.
Yep. Thank you for having me. My name is Billy Dowdy. I'm the CEO of Davis Aquadarts, Inc., also known as Dart Swimming. With this, this is our first RFP. We had the lease for community pool for, I believe, 8 years prior to this. So we were pretty used to running the facility for our own usage. So at the beginning here, kind of our programming numbers, kind of a big one is we run youth aquatics. And so we run really from 2-year-olds from learn to swim all the way through extremely competitive programming. We started our swim school of our Learn to Swim program only 3 years ago. So this is kind of a newer program to us, and it's become extremely successful in this area, as you can see by our fall, spring, and summer numbers. We also run recreational swimming, so this is sort of seasonal programming for kids who like to participate in the sport. And then we run all the way up to competitive, and in the competitive part, Davis Aquadarts currently has an American record holder in 100 backstroke. We have a gentleman right now who's ranked 5th in the world. And we were also, in 2023, we were named the United States #1 age group program in the country. And again, Davis Masters and all the other youth programming, co-sponsor groups that are in the city, just shows the love of aquatics for this small community. To be ranked and to have that many people participate is pretty amazing. So kudos to all the aquatics being run in this town. So a little bit, that's kind of where our programming is. And again, these are numbers. Kids may sign up for multiple sessions, but these are kind of the session reports as we go through. Programming numbers, we received this RFP last spring. So with the first summer, it happened pretty quickly. The other impact last summer was also the closure of Shaw, the UCD facility. So last summer was a pretty impactful summer on all the aquatic groups. So as we go through this, we hope to expand on really the numbers and the public participation part. Last summer, a lot of our rental part came from groups that were impacted because of that closure. So your Davis Aqua Stars, your Davis Water Polo Club, we even had the college teams from UC Davis Men's Water Polo Club. Things like that really came as an early rental source and to help with programming on that part. Other special programming is Davis Kids Club. They're basically a camp that runs out of North Davis. We allowed them to come in and create opportunities for those kids to have some water time and lessons opportunities. Team Davis is our Special Olympic. We work with Team Davis at no cost to that group. Our staff sponsors that, and then our participants volunteer their time to run all Team Davis programming at no cost to them. So community pool programming or rentals, last summer, again, were a lot of the impacted groups. Davis Joint Unified did a lot of activities at that pool, including the track team, the football club, all that kind of stuff. A lot of other parties were Little League parties, end of season parties, things like that were really popular. And then we've now started every Sunday, there's a free diving group. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie on Netflix where they dive, 500 feet down. They do some practicing and some things at Community Pool at this point. And that they've been a good participant so far. Public events, this summer we are working with AYSO for their Memorial Day weekend to have some public swim times. We have Schools Out Party, the 4th of July event, the end of summer party, and then again some DJ USD parties. Also within the public events part, one of our really big push this summer, we do have a community pools director. Her name is Ashley Macedo. And so she answers all the rentals and creates all that sort of contact with the general public. And one of our big missions that I've given her this summer is to really create some sort of get the information out there that we are available for rentals and activities and things like that. One of the things is we're creating a special page within our own website that will allow people to come in and see what's open, what's available for community access. So that's our big push for this summer. We've also had a liaison go to all the city events when they do the camps and the 4th of July groups and all those sort of things where there's planning involved and the public has access to learning more about city camps. We've sent a liaison to all those to really make sure that people do understand that we're out there and they do have access to what's available. So really our mission this summer will be to continue and expand that part of the programming. On your second part is the community pool payments. That was one of our RFP part, was to really update this commission on our payments. As you see, there's the billing months. Those are set at certain times throughout the year by the city. Our January through March billing payment was a little less due to the community pool resurfacing project you heard about earlier, which was extremely successful. The pool looks great. The decking has a ton of improvements. Our PG&E, we pay operational costs for PG&E, so those are on there. And then really dark costs. We cover all janitorial costs, tinting. We just purchased a new vacuum cleaner to go in the pool each night to help city maintenance be able to maintain that pool on a little more regular basis. And so we did that on our expense. So really that kind of labels all that out. We bought a new lane line reel, all that kind of stuff. Cleanup days, we've done 3 cleanup days to pressure wash and to really make sure the facility is maintained at the highest level. And basically when it breaks down to usable hours, for us, it costs about $75 an hour per rental hour to run and operate community pool. I will tell you, we're operating at a deficit at this point. We have not made the $182,000 to match the RFP. Luckily, our club's in very good financial shape to make that, and we viewed this as a 3 to 5 year project, okay, to continue to expand our programs, to get the information out to the citizens, and really to dial in what we do at that facility. So we'll continue to cut that number on our budget end. One of the things we do to really maintain that part of community access is, though it costs us $75 an hour, last summer we rented the facility to other user groups at $45 an hour. So we're actually losing $30 an hour to allow other co-sponsor groups to use the facility. But that means something to us. It's a part of our agreement, and we want to make sure that that facility, when we're not using it, it should not be sitting empty. So we'll continue to keep that cost below our operational costs, so there is access to that part. That's important to us. And then my last really comment was the City of Davis support. This RFP, again, like I said, this is our first time getting into an actual RFP where there's a real direct relationship. And I will say city staff has been fantastic with that. The communication with all the construction that went on at the facility, the repairs, as you know, it's a dated facility. Our aquatics, a lot of our aquatics in this town, are a little older. And so things happen on a regular basis. But their work to improve what's happening, to make sure that it's maintained, when we have closures and things like that, it's just been phenomenal. So really, I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for that update. I'll open it up to commissioner questions. Anyone? Go ahead, Commissioner LaFleur.
Going back on the staff report, just on the first page of that, there was a sentence in there caught my eye when I looked at this earlier. Given the age and state of the pool, which is identified as approaching structural failure in less than 10 years, it goes on and on. Could we hear more about the state of repair and longevity expected on community pool?
We do have quite a bit of work to do out at the facility. The replastering was a great start, but there is some plumbing issues that we are working on, and we'll be hopefully repairing those within the next couple of months. The decking still needs some more work as well. So pools cost a lot of money, and we're trying to do the best that we can.
So we're thinking 10 years isn't a bright line. It's if we don't do something to change our destiny, it's going to go out 10 years. But you're doing the corrective things. You think that'll keep it going a bit?
So I inherited this a year ago, and we are coming up with a plan. There was a 20-year plan in place before. I don't recall what year that started, but due to some of the financial constraints that the city had, some of the maintenance was deferred, and so now we are trying to play catch up. But as far as a timeline, I don't know. I'm trying to do the best that I can with prioritizing what needs to be repaired to keep the pool operational.
Any other questions? Great, Commissioner Marugo?
You mentioned that you guys are running a deficit right now.
Yes.
Is the UCD men's water polo, are they going back to Shaw? Or,
Yes.
So I'm assuming that's going to be even less income.
Yeah, there's a lot more I mean, really our first summer of doing this out to the public, I feel like there's a lot of opportunities that we missed out on that first summer. By getting the RFP in April, really, to be honest, setting all this up took for almost through the summer. So we're 1 year into learning. You know, some of the talks earlier that staff was saying on our outreach part too, from our part, is learning what the community wants and needs. One of the trends that we're seeing is less participation in the teen programming, and a lot more participation in the youth part. A lot of people looking for camps, so we're going to develop a camp system this summer. So from our end, we're trying to develop new programming and to find new user groups to really match into those parts. I think we'll make up more than we're going to lose from those Shaw rentals.
Anyone else have questions? No? I have a couple questions
Sure.
for you too. So what, and maybe this is a question for staff. What's the going rate for pool rental per hour?
For you,
Currently.
I can answer that.
Okay, yeah.
For youth, it's $27 an hour.
Okay, and that's like if you rent a Royal or Manor or
Correct.
whatever?
For
Okay.
co-sponsored groups.
Okay,
So like what we are,
sure.
and what other, yeah.
Sure, so, I mean, renting community pool at $45 an hour, it doesn't seem like there's an incentive to rent community versus, so that's an opportunity for, I mean, like loss, I guess, but at the same time, in the summertime, when all the other pools are filled with free swim or swimming lessons, there's limited access to the water, so
Correct.
you may have more opportunity there.
Right.
A second part of some of the questions, and I know that this is listed in our annual report, is the total hours provided by program area. So just off the top of your head, you know, you've listed, I mean, the majority of this is your own programming, is that right?
It's about 50, well, in the summertime, it's pretty close to 50% of the
Okay.
time that's available for other programming. So like the kids club rental, the Team Davis part, we help with that part, but it's not our programming in general.
Sure.
And then with Davis Aqua Stars rents a large portion because it's an all deep pool, and then they run their shows too.
Okay.
So they're renting a lot of hours during the summer. And then our pool parties and the weekends are almost completely available.
Okay. And like in terms, you talked about developing some access calendar to be able to book pool time. Is that like if I wanted to have a birthday party for my
Yes.
kid and then I go on there and I fill out a form and then I can see a calendar that says, okay, this Saturday from 4 to 7, I can
Correct.
rent it for it.
100%.
Okay.
That's what the idea is because I feel like people hesitate reaching out knowing if we have availability or not.
Sure.
And so for our goal is to have really easy access for people to say, oh, this Saturday or next Saturday from 2 to 6 is wide open. Here's my contact point. I can fill out a little form that links right to our director, who's Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way she can get back to them, and it just allows for people to have that access quickly.
Okay, so that they'll be able to see it when the programming is.
Correct.
And when there's open time.
That's our goal, yeah.
I just envision it kind of, I don't know, I'm more familiar with like the gym side, right? You go into the DJ Misty gym system, you have to fill it out and it's like, you have to request the hours and then
Yeah.
it goes to, who knows, someone.
That's how it's been. I just envision this being a lot more, friendly.
Efficient?
Efficient, yeah.
Okay.
We're trying for that. That's our goal.
Okay, okay. And then my last question, have you guys done any customer satisfaction surveys or feedbacks or anything in terms of?
Yeah, and so most of our programming, like you said, a lot of it is our own programming. On that part, we do internal parts. The programming part, again, I kind of brought it up with the fee parts, like Davis Aqua Stars, their only complaint was the cost.
Sure.
And so that's why I wanted to let this commission know and understand why that would be in our customer survey.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do a better job of that. That's not something we've been used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll work on doing more of that. But that's probably the main feedback we've gotten is the cost part, because it is different from their other rentals, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost $20 and when you're running a
100%.
program, it's a direct impact to the participant fees, et cetera.
Yeah, completely understand. That's why I wanted the commission to understand that it is still even a loss for us while we're renting that. It would be better for us financially to run our own programming, but that's not really what we've signed in for this and really why we want to continue to operate this way.
Yeah, so you mentioned the like plan for going forward in terms of this summer, you're hoping to bring additional revenue in terms of like camps, your own camps.
Correct.
Or your own programming and expanding on some of your numbers.
Yeah, actually, it's more of a shift, I should say, because like our Teen Dart program dominated sort of our morning rentals of what we did, and that program, we put it out there, we've had 6 kids sign up. It's the lowest by, a fourth of what we've had in the past.
Sure.
And so now we're trying to move towards that camp within the same amount of time. So it's not going to take up more time that we would have available for public programming or for rentals. It's just really a shift in our programming. To hopefully better impact the facility.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of memories swimming there as a kid, so I think it'd be nice that the public is able to use it for some sort of nominal cost.
It's not a great facility to run big public events, but it really is a nice facility to run private parties.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where we've really gotten the feedback more from. The public events, the 4th of July, everybody's locked in there. And so they all want to come and swim because there's an event going on. But when we open it for a general public event, really our signups have not been great.
Yeah.
But the private parties have been extremely popular because you've got 2 different pools, you've got shade structures there, and really you're kind of locking in your own facility for your own family and event.
Sure. Do you mind me asking what your general costs are in terms of what you're charging people for?
Yeah, I think it's the basic rental part. I can send the commission that amount, but I believe you can rent 1 pool or 2 pool, and then it's the beyond that. So I think for 2 pools, it's $80 an hour, something like that. And then for it also that you'd add how many guards you need.
Okay.
So just to cover.
Oh, because you have to pay for the
cover
lifeguards.
Yeah, that's our.
Okay, so you guys cover the lifeguards, not the city at this point, right?
Correct. We do
The
everything
rentals,
at the
you do-
facility.
Okay,
Other than maintenance, some maintenance work.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a, and it's on our website too, and I can send that to the commission, but there's a table based on how many participants and then how many guards are in that park.
All right.
So I believe it's less than the city pools.
Yeah, the city ones are expensive.
So,
Okay. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Okay, any other questions at this point?
I just had some clarification. Did I hear you, Belly, say that your programming right now takes care of about 50% of the availability?
in the summertime, yes.
Okay, and so we have 50% that's available to the public for renting and everything?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and I should say 50%, like Davis Aqua Stars has been a program that's kind of, I'll call it their primary facility too.
Okay.
And so it's, I guess 50% is used by DART at this point, and then maybe 20% is used by Davis Aqua Stars, and then there's another, 20 to 30% that we have for, like on Saturdays and Sundays, we're out of there by 10 a.m. So the full Saturday and the full Sunday are wide open for programs and activities and things like that.
Okay, great.
All right, any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, appreciate it.
Okay. So with that being said, I will open for public comment. No, I just, we're going through our list. You're good. All right, no public comment, so we'd like to go ahead and move to item 6B, Tree Davis presentation on the Arneson Park conversion. Thank you for patiently waiting.
My pleasure. Good evening. My name is Torin. I'm the executive director at Tree Davis. I spoke to you, I believe, back in November as a brief preview about this item. And Tamika, do you mind putting up the presentation?
Yes.
So believe that y'all received our summary documents. I just wanted to give a little bit of flavor for this. Tree Davis is a now 32-year-old organization that was founded by members of the Davis community to enhance the urban forest here in the city through community engagement. We have been lucky to have a great partnership with the City of Davis for that entire history, both with the Urban Forestry Unit here and also the Parks Department. They've been awesome partners for us. And one of the unique programs that we started quite a long time ago is called the Tribute Tree Program, which started in an area that we now call the Memorial Grove. The concept of tribute trees was that individuals could make donations that would fund the planting and care of trees. All the work that we've been doing in the city up until then had been funded through city or grant funding. So that was a novel concept for us to start on, and it led us into the creation of a space that we call the Tree Davis Memorial Grove, which is in West Davis on basically on the Greenbelt between Shasta Drive and White Sands Lane, right south of URC. So we were there already working in that space with an agreement with the city to bring that tribute tree program to life. And then we started to think, well, this is nice, but we also realized that if our goal is to make the Davis community a healthier space, it's not just about trees. And so it's about, transforming underutilized green spaces into spaces that are supporting biodiversity, urban cooling, water savings, and just continuing to make the spaces as aesthetically pleasing as possible. And so we decided to take chunks of that space and ask for donations to support the transition into what we call climate-ready landscapes. So that was a very successful project. All, I think, 7 of the groves, mini groves we call them, were funded and transformed. We actually just finished the last one in January with a donation from folks from the URC community. So with that transition, that allowed us to start thinking about this whole new element to our work, transforming spaces. And so we were partnered with the Parks Department on the renewal at N Street Park. And if you all have been there, I was just there a couple weekends ago. It's looking amazing with the new plants that are native, drought tolerant spaces. It just makes the space really a beautiful area in addition to all the other amenities that space provides. As the Memorial Grove has succeeded, it led us to saying, what's next for us? This was an awesome experiment. we'd like to see it done further. So Tamika, if you don't mind changing to the next slide. And so the idea was to find a new space where we could do this work. And so this is Robert Arneson Park in Wild Horse. This is an initial concept that we worked together with a few stakeholders in the community that identified this space for us. And the idea for Arneson is very similar. It's a much different space. It's not just one linear green belt. It's a very large park with green space. So the idea for us was to, what I call nibble at the edges of the park, obviously wanting to maintain that important green field that is well used, but for spaces that weren't seeing as much interest from folks, enhance those spaces. And so this initial design is not necessarily something that is to be taken as complete, ideal outcome for us at this point, but it was a first start. So what we call MGs, or mini groves, are the spaces that we would be putting in more trees. And then PG are pollinator gardens, which would be more of those plants, shrubs, things like that. The idea here is, once again, that this would be completely privately funded. And so this is what we went to the community with. And there was a lot of positive support. The I'll get into the feedback, but the general concept is that the pollinator gardens would be spaces dedicated through individual donations to honor a group of people and a specific loved one. And then the mini groves would actually be potentially some of them themed, right? That we would say, this is the mini grove that's dedicated or that is basically directed specifically toward, newborns. And so people who wanted to say, oh, great, my granddaughter was just born, I'd like to donate a tree to honor her for that purpose. And so we look at having themed mini groves in a handful of different locations in the park and be really thoughtful about how to make those the most attractive spaces, but also using the best practices in what we call climate-ready trees, like the trees that we know succeed in this space, but also thinking about how can we make this the most visually appealing space as well. We would also continue our tribute tree program with a wide array of trees throughout the park as well. So that was the concept. We wanted to engage folks, Tamiko, if you don't mind moving on, by basically letting people know, and this is really something where we started to engage with Deanne and Dave and the parks team pretty early on and said, this is our concept, and we were told we want to do really robust community engagement. So we followed that template and we did a whole bunch of promotion. We did social media both on Tree Davis, and then the City of Davis picked up our promotion as well and put out the word about this. We did our e-newsletters, and then we flyered 220 homes in the direct neighborhood to let people know that we were talking about this and we wanted their feedback. And that people could provide us feedback either digitally or in person. Next slide, please. And so we did have in-person outreach, which was great. We had lots and lots and lots of people come out. We hosted 2 open houses, one on a Thursday afternoon and then one on a Saturday morning. We were able to engage with people that were just walking by, that just used the park regularly. And then there were lots of folks that actually, like the minute we said, okay, show up at 3 p.m., like they came out in droves and like, I have thoughts for you, which was really great to see. I mean, honestly, I had been told by stakeholders that, lived in the neighborhood that Wild Horse is a very sleepy neighborhood that doesn't speak up very much. That was not the case at all. They were very active, very interested in seeing what was going on in their park. And so that's always great from my perspective to see. Next slide, please. And so our survey basically said, do you or do you not live in this Wild Horse neighborhood, just to get a sense of like, if people had really great feedback and lived in the neighborhood, that was very valuable. If they had less than ideal, and really like jarring feedback, but they lived in like, Turlock or something, that wasn't necessarily something we need to react to. We asked them, how they currently use the park, what they did like about the concept, if they did have positive feedback about it, and certainly what were their concerns about it. And all in all, we had about 45 responses. 25 of them were online responses and 21 were in person. There were more people that interacted with us in person but just weren't interested in filling in a form, so we didn't bug them too much, but they were generally, kind of aggregated with the whole feedback that we received. Next slide, please. And so the feedback, I tried to share, in the outreach packet, you received all of the feedback, but I also tried to sort of summarize it in my report. Generally, there's a lot of support for this. I'd say wildly supportive for this project. People are excited to see the park get more attention, and this is what's beautiful that I see and appreciate with the Parks Department is we can do something with our expertise. We have funding models to do good things, and the Parks Department is always very supportive for us to do those things and do what they can to make sure those things happen. And so this is this place where we can take, you know, a nice park and make it even better. People were very supportive of more trees, especially trees that are climate appropriate trees. They are supportive of the idea of us transitioning some of the park into these water conserving, biodiversity supporting spaces, and so that was really awesome. The concerns that we heard was, you know, don't take away the entire field. We know that people like to use that space, obviously we agree. They wanted to make sure that any changes that were made would be maintained, and that is our model. Every tree that we plant, we give 5 years of care for. The memorial grove is something that we're going to care for into perpetuity. Our funding models, the donations that we request to make these changes, fund that to happen. So that's really, you know, something that we seek to meet that, that desire. There were a couple of notes about that there are walkthroughs that people are using right now that are just on turf lawn, but if we were to put in a bunch of plants or trees, that those need to be preserved, which is totally understandable and we'd like to put into our second draft plan. And then there were the 2 residents that live immediately adjacent to the park on Calder that came out and said, I'm doing some of the work on this space right now. So I'd like to make sure whatever you're doing out my window, you know, looks good to me and I feel comfortable with. So we'd love to, I think it's Dennis and, I'm trying to remember the folks' names. I had it at one point. Anyway, really nice people. So, you know, we're happy to basically sit down in their living room and make sure that the future plans really work for them as well. And then there were a few other pieces of information that were shared with us that kind of fall out of our scope, but I think there are ways that, you know, we just wanted to share them, that they would like more benches, and so I think we'd be very encouraging of them to use the city's bench creation program. They'd like more trash receptacles, they'd like to see more lighting, some people said less lighting, I don't know. And then people wanted to see the gopher situation addressed, which has been addressed, so, I mean, we're ahead of the game there, I guess, so that's great.
I've got a solution for that. Owl boxes
Yeah,
in the trees.
this is actually, that was something that was brought up, and we love that idea too. And I actually didn't put that in my notes, but that was something that people mentioned, and it does definitely fit within sort of our, like, you know, better ideas as well, so I love it. So just next steps for us is to, you know, work directly with those residents that I mentioned and the staff to make this design really fit what the community wants to see and what works for, you know, it to be feasible. There is some ideas that we would be looking for potential like sculptures that could go into the park that is, you know, for the arts and culture team to talk about that would, you know, maybe add some more amenities to the park and also would be ways to honor very subtly the people that were dedicatees to this, to the various elements that we'd be adding in. And then once we have a more concrete plan to go back and like have a community meeting in the neighborhood so people can see where we stand with that. We've got everybody's contact information. We told them we'd like to do that. And so that's our plan in the summertime. And then we would start reaching out to sponsors, right? Whether it's the Sutter Health, you know, maternity grove, that's a potential aspect that we thought about. Or for, you know, I know that there's been a few of the civic groups that have reached out to me already about this. So just see who's interested in potentially becoming, you know, a sponsor to this project is something that's important to us. So that is what I wanted to share with you. I do want to basically echo what the last presenter said. Working with the Parks team is amazing, and we love working with them. This has been a great experience for me in many different ways. So thanks to Dave, thanks to Deanne for that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thanks for all your work on beautifying these areas. I know the area over, what is it, near Patwin and Arroyo is a quite nice area, and I grew up in that area, and I often like to walk through the area. Since you guys have finished it, it looks really, really nice. So
thank you.
Thank you for doing that. I would like to open it up for questions or comments. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner LaFleur.
Good to see you. I stopped
That's right.
by
Good to see you again.
Thursday.
Yeah.
I saw my picture of my rear somewhere in there.
Can we go back up the slide?
Don't bring that back down.
Commissioner LaFleur's on.
There it is. I said, don't bring that back. I was very impressed with the number of folks. That was just like a mid-afternoon chilly day, and I was impressed by the number of folks just kind of walking through, and then your guys' individual level engagement with them. I just very impressed with that. So I think that really sets a good future for what you plan to do out there. One of the things that kind of caught my previous park ranger eye was on some of the earlier materials was you were focused on an underutilized area. It was identified as that, and that always catches my eye, underutilized. Why do we have an underutilized area in a park system with so many folks that are engaged in it? And I walked out there around that gopher infested field, and I could see what the issue was. I love your boxes, owl box idea. I would definitely push carrying that forward. Yeah, in times past, we used to bring the kids practicing lacrosse and soccer out there, but it just looked really, really hazardous. I would be curious to hear, so what, apparently you've solved the gopher problem, Dave?
We haven't solved it, but we are in the process of addressing it. So currently we have a couple of machines that pump carbon monoxide into the burrows. And so we're utilizing those. It's a kind of a humane way of eradicating the problem, I guess is the best way to say it. We've also engaged John McNerney, who is our environmental wildlife resource specialist. He does actually plan to put out boxes out there.
Oh, yeah.
And so that is in the works as well. So it's a multifaceted approach to how we're trying to get rid of that problem. But unfortunately, with the methodology that we have available to us and that fits into the city's IPM policy, it's an ongoing process. It's not something that we'll be able to solve overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. The overall site is curious. It seems like an oddity. It almost looked to me, I don't know what the history was of the developer's plans in that site, but it's immediately adjacent to golf course, and I'm sure the golf course does not have a gopher problem. I'm kind of thinking they probably chased them your way, but it almost looks to me like originally it was planned to have been a part of the golf course, and somebody changed their mind and said, now we'll make it more part of the open space public area. It's kind of an odd, when you get out in the ground, I just wonder if there's any kind of history to that, how that ended up being what it is.
I'm not really sure, honestly. That's something that we could probably look into and possibly collect that information, but at this time, I'm not really sure. Deanna and I actually just had this conversation yesterday about the golf course and probably the impacts of the gophers migrating to our area. Also, because the golf course is private, they have different methodology available to them that we don't have. And so, I think a lot of those things factor into that rodent infestation in that area there, but certainly we are not just looking at this wonderful plan that Tree Davis is working on with us, but possibly some other uses for that park as well. And the first step is making the turf usable and safe for the residents of that area.
Yeah, and just a suggestion, I love what you've been doing with these various, I'll just call them urban forests, and certainly if there's room out there in that area to plant some kind of a mixed urban forest in there amongst those open spaces, I think that would be really good. Then the last question I do have then, so process-wise, you're leading up to some kind of a project, correct? And when, I guess I'm wondering, when would that be? And we had a little earlier sequel discussion. I assume it's going to project that would qualify as a project under CEQA. So am I correct on that? Would this end up being a CEQA project that the city would review too?
That's a good question. We would look to our city attorney to weigh in on the CEQA question. I don't know if it would qualify.
Okay, and then when do you think you would be having a project?
I mean, ideally, we would start, we would love to, once we feel like we've gotten the full okay from the community and from the city, to get the word out. And then it wouldn't, I mean, really, sequencing is a question for us that we need to get into, because we wouldn't know that we wouldn't wait for all funding to be secured to start. We would start, at one piece and then next. And that's really kind of how the Memorial Grove worked for us, is that it's inspired greater support as time went on. And so I think we'd want to find a few initial supporters, get something, installed, maybe in the lower, the lower corner, and then radiate out from there. But that's kind of a question I want to work out, is what's going to make the most, positive changes quickly and also not look like a space that is, under construction the entire time. So I think we, work with, Dave and his team to figure out that sequencing as well.
So at some point, though, you will have a completed project, right? A project document.
Yep.
That the city would have to approve. Would this body have to approve it or recommend approval? Or
Correct.
what does this look like?
Right, so tonight we're looking for input and feedback from the commission on the project, and then we would wrap that into a future staff report that we would take to council
Okay.
to get their direction as to whether or not we should move forward and pursue.
So just to clarify, on our agenda, it does say no action informative. So you do want us to give feedback on this?
Yes, feedback is good, and so, but it's not
It's
the deciding
it's not
body
a formal action.
for
Okay.
the decision.
Okay, I
It goes to council, so any feedback, recommendations, questions, clarifications, that then would go over back to Tree Davis to go ahead and compile and then bring back over to staff for review, and then it would progress forward.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page here and what you're looking for. Okay, Commissioner O'Donnell?
Yes, I lived in Wildwood for 15 years, so I'm very familiar with this area, and I would agree with others that it's very odd shaped. And, it could be vastly improved, and I'm glad to see a plan under development. I like the idea of the garden components, the benches. One thing that I wasn't quite clear on is the material that I saw in our package said that ongoing maintenance would be covered by Tree Davis. And I'm not sure I understood, or perhaps I would like to see clarified in the next document says, what does that mean? Because there's a lot of turf there.
Sure.
Is Brightview, our contractor, taking care of that? There's existing shrubs that Tree Davis will not be modifying, but will keep in place. But I'm not sure, will Tree Davis be out there mowing that lawn?
No, thank goodness, no. We would be maintaining the new interventions.
All right, so I would like to see that clarified in the
Okay,
document.
yep, sure,
because
no
right
problem.
now, it just says ongoing maintenance.
Yep.
covered by Tree
And
Davis.
if I can, Commissioner Ono, similar to In Street Park, right, where we have a sort of collaborative MOU in place where there are certain aspects of the maintenance handled by the city and then certain aspects of maintenance handled by Tree Davis. This would be a similar agreement that we would enter into moving forward where the components of the park that Tree Davis would be modifying, they would assume maintenance responsibilities of those. And then we would continue to maintain the areas like the turf and some of the areas that won't be impacted by this project, that would still stay under city authority.
That was my presumption. So I would expect that the MOU would perhaps specify that Tree Davis would meet minimally the new landscape park maintenance standards.
Yeah, the development of any maintenance practices would fall under that, and so that would be something that Torin and our team would be working on to ensure that those standards are being upheld.
Great, thank you.
I'm guessing it's generally true that your responsibility is to keep the trees alive and to steward them into maturity. And then at some point, it's just part of the mature landscaping in a park, and or do you continue to have responsibility?
I mean, with trees, we actually have a whole MOU with the city of Davis. We maintain them for 5 years, and then the city takes over those trees, including trees in parks. These trees would be no different from that. Our relationship with the we just don't have bucket trucks. The plants, weeding, reapplying mulch, replacing dead plants, replacing dead trees, that would be on us.
All right. Commissioner Rigo?
Couple things for the GOFO problem, called one word. Memorial Grove, I've been there. I was when you did it back in the, I think the winter time. I'm very impressed with that. It was great. So I did visited a bunch of parks, and I came to this park, and I'm like, why? There's nothing there. it's one of the most boring parks that I've ever been to in the city. There's no playgrounds, there's no anything. When I saw you guys put this there, I was like, oh my God, bring something to this park. Because I'm totally for it. It needs something. So I think it's a great project to bring to it. Where you were at the Memorial Grove, I thought that was a good space where it is. You picked a great park to come into there. So yes, do whatever you can to give some life to this park.
Anyone? Commissioner Edmonds?
Could I just get clarification on the in-street space? I'd like to visit that, but I'm not exactly sure where it's located.
If you're at the corporate yard, you just jump over the fence. But if you go in, like, I'm trying to remember the entry street from the west side. I know if you come in on, well, if you enter into the Davis Manor neighborhood,
Okay.
you get onto N Street and you go south. It's the very end of N Street. It's where the dinosaur mural is, if that rings a bell for you, if you happen to have been there. It's a tiny little park, it's beautiful.
Okay.
It's a dead end.
And then I just wanted to say that your community outreach is very impressive.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate that you did that and you'll continue to involve them.
Yeah, and it's central to our belief system, right? That an empowered community is a space where greenery thrives. So all of our work, we actually just had an awesome planting event in partnership with the city in Davis Manor. And then we had like a Arbor Day festival in N Street Park. And it just was wonderful to have, community members leading that process and us just to be there as part of it, so.
And the survey was wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm also wondering if this would be a great opportunity when you develop this to even maybe get people that want to volunteer.
Yeah, we would love to, absolutely. It's actually one of the things that I think we look back on at the Memorial Grove as a missed opportunity. There are a few community members that do volunteer there, which we really appreciate. But I think to start at the ground level with folks and let them know that this is their space, rather than please come help us. And so we actually asked that question informally when we were out in person. There were a lot of people said, yes, we'd love to. So we captured those names and we'll be reaching out to them. Thank you.
Great. Any other commissioner feedback, questions? No? I just had a couple of things, and I think some of my fellow commissioners asked them about the maintenance and the, pollinator groves and stuff, but what I actually really appreciated is some of the sitting areas in the park. Not everybody wants to sit in the grass, and including myself, out in the open sun. And so I love the idea of, I think the one picture that had like some sort of cement benches or So in terms of this, I think this is where the city partnership gets crossed over of benches and walkway spaces. The city staff would be responsible for that area to implement, but then you would be, replacing or adding trees or whatever around them.
We got I'll say we got a little bit ahead of ourselves with these schematics because I actually started talking to people about it and they're like, just laying DG is really difficult. Our staff that's not our core competency. And so I think it is an ongoing conversation for Tree Davis and the Parks Department to have about what is feasible there. I think, that's what's been beautiful about our relationship is that the Parks Department goes as far as they can to enable us to do the things that we can do. And so I think if there's opportunities that the Parks Department has to enhance that space, we'd love to see it and encourage them and hear from the community about those things. I think the bench program is something they're not even aware of, and that can be engaged immediately. So just being on the ground and hearing people, I think, and maybe Dave, I'll speak on your behalf, but what I heard Dave say was, we want you to tell us what you're hearing from folks, because they don't have the time to just sit there in the park like we did and listen to them. But we're going to be there all the time, so we can continue to be that sort of conduit of conversation about other enhancements that when the Parks Department has the bandwidth can institute those things.
Yeah, I think that's a good partnership. I do think that, it's a nice, if the park is going to be so pretty, people are going to want to come there, right? And so to have this like resource and usability will improve, and I'm sure that the neighbors around the surrounding areas will appreciate, that area too. I know I would if I was locally able to walk there or whatever, so. There was like there were a couple feedback, like just random, like as I was perusing through your comments of, somebody was asking about the, what made you select this space? Why is there changes? Who asked for the change kind of? And so I know you talked a little bit about somebody had brought this space to your attention, but going forward, what is your kind of envision for selecting park spaces or selecting, arboretum space or whatever open spaces to do this? Because I also think that there might be other opportunities across Davis that could use some beautification, and I think we all would welcome private funding to do that too.
Yep.
So.
And I'm curious, I mean, the selection predates me, so
Okay.
I'm sort of just piggybacking on it, but there's always for me been a needs nexus
Yeah.
of both interest and then, that there's a lack of. And so, I think working on that idea helps, but I mean, I would assume the parks need assessment could also identify these things. Where are the parks that have the least amount of amenities? Where is there the least amount of green space in total? Like those sort of and this is what we do with the urban forestry team as well. It's like, we should plant trees where there aren't any trees. And so I think that we can look at the work that's already being created and say, cool, like we can just dovetail right on that and then see if we can find investment for it.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. And what is the impact on the city for planting additional trees when it seems like we have a hard time maintaining some of the trees that we already have?
Well, so the trees specifically aren't maintained by parks, they're maintained by urban forestry. So
Okay.
that MOU exists actually under urban forestry.
Okay.
So as Torrin said, Tree Davis plants several trees. They ensure establishment and then also work on maintenance of those until that 5-year mark, and then they become city assets basically, and then urban forestry is responsible for taking care of those. The way that it impacts parks is minimal. They're planted in areas typically where we have turf, and so now we just have to mow around them instead of through that area, so it's very minimal usually. Tree Davis does a good job of sending us their projected areas where they'd like to plant. We look at infrastructure or, certain areas where possibly there could be negative impacts, and then we make suggestions on where maybe those could be replanted. It's a very great collaborative relationship that we have with Tree Davis, and so we value it very highly.
Okay, that's great. I just want to understand the impact for you and your staff as well, to make sure that it's not adding to, while I'm fully supportive, I just want to be mindful of, overburden some of
And I mean, ideally, and we don't want to burden the city at all. We just want to enhance it. I mean, honestly, the city's goal that I understand right now is no net loss of trees. And so if they're able to maintain, 200 trees a year being planted, it's because 200 trees are being lost. Mature trees are much more expensive to maintain than young trees. And we're also doing structural maintenance that establishes them for greater strength than what you would have if a developer planted it and then just walked away. So we're trying to set it up for the best success possible. And we'd love to see go to a net positive, which I think the city would like to see as well, but that's kind of where we stand right now.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Excellent. Well, anyone else have any comments?
Just a quick shout out to what you all do. I just think it's amazing. In the earlier part of my career when I was a real park ranger, I was a national park ranger in the Santa Monica Mountains, and I worked with a group called the Treat People.
I used to work there.
Treeps.
I was Treat.
Oh, yeah. I was just amazed what they did and accomplished in a place so devoid of trees and habitat. And it was just amazing to see that, and I love now at this point seeing what you guys are doing to a Davis. And I just encourage you to keep up the good work. It's great stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. We thank you for presenting this and doing such a great job with your community outreach and everything like that. We look forward to what the collaboration turns into and eventually seeing the turn of the park.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So with that being said, I'll open public comment. There's nobody in our, I will note, so we will close public comment and go ahead and move to item 7, the long range calendar. And I think, Tamiko, you want to chat really quickly about that?
Yes, so I included the long-range calendar, just upcoming topics. With the new proposed scope for RPC, I'm going to cross off PCS budget presentation. And the capital improvement projects, we give updates through the staff updates of what they are, but this is something that it could be given annually because as we're preparing our budget, we can summarize it.
but it is also listed on the website of our current projects that we have. So that could be something that's on there or not, because you all have access to it on the website as well. So if those were to be taken off, we don't currently have any agendized topics to discuss in May. And looking forward, usually we try to do something in the parks in July, which is Parks and Rec Month. But sometimes the heat gets us because of the time of our meeting. So I put on here with a question, maybe having something in June, because maybe it won't be, I'll hope that it won't be too hot yet in June. And then maybe that relieves July of having to do something out in the field. August, we're usually dark, and so we don't have a lot kind of leading into the next couple of months, which also then I'll throw out to you to say, this is where we maybe look and say, we don't have, you know, topics that we have to discuss. We're not charged with discussing the topics. It's more of what's coming up in recreation and planning, what's coming up in park planning. And so we can leave things open and either have a meeting if there are topics that come up, or we can scale back how many times we meet. I looked at past history of our meetings, and in the past couple of years, it looked like we were meeting more about 7 times on average throughout the year instead of the 10. And so I think it's just something for us to think about, is maybe the 10 times a year isn't the commitment that this commission needs, or we shift how we're doing things, and some are in chambers, you know, for kind of like the business stuff, and then we look at engaging into the community and having something more active, like at different sites. So it's not that we have to make a decision on this, but in regards to next month, we don't have anything that's pressing at this point.
So, I mean, I would like to open that up for commissioner input, but I definitely think that it's nice to have a little bit more meatier meeting, you know, per se, and then save some time if there's not something that's pressing, but I will let other commissioners weigh in if they have feedback as well. Anyone?
I'll go.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I don't mind every other month. The one thing I wasn't crazy about is we canceled 2 meetings in a row. I mean, granted, we didn't have anything to talk about, but I just think that was a really long time to go from January to April. So, I mean, if we wanted to scale back to every other month, that way we can kind of get a better idea of what's going on and still go with dark in December and August. But that just, it seemed like a long time since I saw everybody. I don't know, I think getting updates on what's going on is important.
I think also looking forward as we go into the general plan, right? And then also if we encounter the pieces and have a little bit more definition of the public outreach portion, that may add some components, you know, that we can discuss, not on a monthly basis, but like if every other month, or, you know, maybe it is 7 times a year or so. But anyone else have comments? Commissioner Arnold?
For October or November, I was wondering if we could add perhaps a discussion on the park maintenance standards implementation. That will be 1 year since the city has adopted those maintenance standards. In about 5 months that our landscape contractor will be under service and under those maintenance standards. And so it would be great to hear the successes, the challenges, what the status is.
Yeah, we're actually already having those conversations right now in anticipation of giving sort of an annual report on the landscape maintenance standards. So that definitely will be something that will be upcoming at one of the commission meetings.
And what month is that?
Well,
October and November?
November would give a full year and maybe 5 months under contract services. So that might be, to be fair, to give time to review the information and prepare some type of presentation.
October is also nice too, because you'll have all of your summer recap of, and I would advocate to get that on our long-term calendar, because I think that there's lots of celebration for successes, and then also, you know, what did we learn and what can we do for next year as well. And I, especially since, you know, you're implementing some additional inclusion programs, I'm very curious to hear the feedback on those specifically. So it would be great to plan for that. And we can do it at whatever month we decide to share about the RFP update as well.
And I'm okay with moving every other month. I think that would be fine. One question will be, I know back in the dark ages, 2022 or earlier, we used to get with our agenda status report from the director that described maybe a couple, 2 to 3 sentences on all projects going on in terms of status. And I'm not sure if it needs to be done for every meeting, but maybe quarterly? Is that possible? Or is all that information on the web and we just have to kind of search for it? I'm not sure where to get that information.
Is your monitor on right now?
Yes.
Let me walk you through. So this is our landing page for the city. And if I click over on departments, I can go down to Parks and Community Services. And if I scroll down here to current improvement projects, this will show you all of our current things that are going on. And so those signs that Dave was showing that we are posting up in parks when we have a project happening or about to happen would have a QR code that would lead you back to this landing page. And so the director's updates information comes from our capital improvement projects that we get from our public works department that are for our department. And those status updates are put into here now. If you went to the site before, it was very stagnant. But now it is touched, I don't know, weekly as these reports come out and updates are posted in here. So this is the most current and the most public way that we thought we could get the information out.
Can you punch on one of those so we can see what it looks like?
Yes. So this is one of our completed projects, which was part of the Healthy Play project. And so it shows the newly renovated exercise adult engagement area. And this is what it was beforehand. So it was a little stagnant tot lot beforehand that then when the outreach happened in that community, they said that this was not used for what it was intended and they would like to see something that was more activated for adults. And so this is what they got instead.
So how long once something moves to completed, how long does it stay on there? Because if you take it off, then we miss the window, right, to see that it's completed, so
we were just talking about this like 4 hours ago.
Okay.
And saying how we wanted to move things that were completed down to a bottom area that says like completed or like come play here now. And we have that, we'll keep that there for a year as a way to showcase the accomplishments that the department has made it through in our different park locations. So coming soon, next time you click on this, hopefully you'll see that.
Great.
And actually, these updates and the signage were all a part of the feedback from our January commission meeting.
This is very
Job well
helpful.
done.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is great.
So,
Good stuff.
I think, does anybody else have any comments specifically about this? Go ahead.
Oh, you mean about the one on the calendar?
Before no, this current improvement, project page. I know, Tamika and I had spoken about just having a little bit more transparency to what the projects are, and I know that things don't move super fast and that's okay, but it's also nice to be able to say, oh, like, remember 6 months ago we were talking about lighting somewhere, or bathroom, or whatever. So it's just nice to be able to go here and look. Bob, I don't know if this is sufficient to your update, or if there's something further that you're looking for.
I think this is very helpful.
Okay.
Let me take a look at it.
We can
Looks like it.
bring it up again if you want. Okay. I do think that it would be really helpful for our members, our commissioner members that are not here, to be aware of this. So if you would would be so kind to send this out and just say, as part of our feedback from the January meeting, we want to share with you the website, and then that way we all have it at our fingertips instead of having to remember how to get here, even though I know it's not that hard to navigate, but it's also nice to have it accessible, especially for the members that aren't here.
The link could also be put in the agenda, just so that, so public members, when they see the agenda, they can say, click there.
And and maybe just, it could be listed under the staff announcements, right? Like updates here. And then that way, everybody can benefit from your hard work here, because I think it definitely is a good step towards, offerings here. And it's also nice too, because if somebody is like, oh, my park has all these, messed up things and aren't used properly, they can go and see if it's on the list, and if it's not, then they can make some recommendations as well. So there's opportunities there.
I'm just gonna add, I've just been going through and clicking on each one. It's totally cool. Photos, more photos. That's one thing I've noticed in there. Like on the stairs, the Sly Hill Park, maybe put on photos like, hey, this is what it was, and possibly what it's gonna be.
We're trying to get better about doing that. We have some newer members on our staff that are a little bit younger and a little bit more tech savvy, and then we have some what I call some OGs who are not so much. So we're definitely encouraging that, and not just with the major projects, right? With the routine maintenance and things that we're doing in the parks to really showcase and tell our story about what it is we're actually doing in parks. And so we are trying to get to that point, Commissioner Marigo. We're not quite there yet.
I do think, Dave, that there's so much work that you and your team does that you don't get credit for. And so part of the effort to make pictures and post things is to make the people, make the community aware of all of your hard work and efforts. And I know we all see it, but I think just your average, community member may not be fully aware of what you and your team are responsible for, and the vast amount of things that you're, so I would definitely welcome pictures too, just to be able to give you kudos as well.
And related to that, and maybe this becomes an agenda item at some other time, is our social media.
Yes.
What we're trying to do with social media. So if anyone is already on our social media channel, we have our own, right? The city has one, and then Parks has our own. And hopefully, if you're on there, you've noticed that we've really stepped up the engagement. That was intentional, because the way that we reach out to our community is through Instagram, Facebook, etc. And so it's right to this point, the posts that are happening daily and sometimes multiple times per day tend to be program heavy at this point. So really, the next iteration of this will be to very much include what's going on in our parks as well as it relates to our projects. So I just bring this up because it dovetails into what we're just talking about right now, which is it really requires pictures, right? It's a picture-based sort of situation. And so we really need those photos so that way we can make sure that it's posted on our social media channels. And it may even be a really good opportunity for commissioners. If commissioners are out and about and you want to take photos, could be, another way in which to engage with boots on the ground and that community piece that we were talking about earlier.
Definitely. It'd be nice to see stuff during the parks, what is July?
Parks and Rec
Parks and Rec month,
yes.
for sure, right?
And the national parks, they have a whole system that, is wonderful, right? They have a bunch of images that we can use that really hype up Parks and Rec, and we're absolutely going to pursue that this year.
Great. Any other, now I'm opening back up for long range calendar comments.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered if it might make sense for us to do, I love the park tours, by the way. I've really gotten a lot out of them. If it might make sense for us to do a park tour in May, and then maybe in June we could better prepare for at least an initial discussion on public outreach. Just a thought, I'm
Yeah.
not wedded to
Sure.
that, but, you know, sometimes we can luck out with the day we pick to do a park tour, but we're always, you know, tempting the gods when we try and do it during the heat
I
of
was
summer.
gonna say, why do we do it in the fall?
We can do that. You all can decide that. I would also say that, just in consideration, the summer programming is a very busy time for our staff, and so if you were so gracious to allow for no meetings in June or July, you know, that's a great time where everyone is operating at 110%, because we have programming everywhere throughout the city, and so park staff are operating 110% to make sure that they're all ready before the kids get out into the camps, and then we have all of our rec staff who are just out there doing over-programming. So any break that we take during that time is greatly appreciated from the staff side of it, but we're happy to have our meetings and discuss our topics too.
I mean, I'm fully supportive of that, you know, I think it's important that we focus on those things and we can get our updates in September too, you know, so I'm fine with that, but I don't know what others, you know, prefer as well.
I
Yes,
like
go
the
ahead.
idea of the public outreach sometime in the next couple months, and I'm wondering, Deanne, if it would be helpful for you guys to sort of let us know where we can do that. And then we could respond to that. Does that seem reasonable? And I know you're busy, so depending on where you could fit that in.
Sure, so let me clarify, what you're asking for are areas that we need assistance on with respect to community engagement, is that?
You're right.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Okay, all right, any other, no, all right. Item, number 8, no objections to adjourning the meeting at 8:53, thank you.